Hello and welcome back to the Gold Advantage. We're here to discuss the LCS playoffs. We have our first two NA teams, and in a shock upset, Cloud9 is going to Worlds. No, but seriously, the real shocker here is NRG continues their momentous run, upsets a Golden Guardians team, which I think everyone just had as the winning team, even though people are giving some credit to NRG. And NRG is going to Worlds right after CLG has just sold the org. How great is it for NRG? They come in, they're buying a dying org, they take them to Worlds. And contracts, he's going back to Worlds after 6 years. He was super emotional after that win. Just to wrap up, I'm your host, Nikita. I'm sure you guys are watching, loyal fans and all that. And with me is Big Money Blitz, who, you know what? You're really big money this weekend. Big money.
Big money. Something you just said, not to just go back, but like, it is amazing what happens to a franchise when leadership changes and you just kind of refresh the people that are around. It invigorates the players. You start getting, a winning culture around it. It's amazing what happens when you see a team turn around. We have always been loyal CLG supporters on this podcast here, going back to their first blood run a couple years back. I freaking had it, and I was so goddamn pumped to see it come to life.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. And then also Dignitas Revival, right? Like these were the fun matches. Like these were basically two matches. You and I made personal bets. I went 2-0, you went 0-2. So we know who the true expert is here on the podcast.
Maybe not. Who knows? We don't know. That's just your opinion,
not working. Man.
That's just your opinion.
The microphone not working? And it sets up, I think a really fun weekend here. And to your point, we were talking before we started recording, but like this is a C9 team that all of a sudden doesn't look like a world beater. Now maybe that's just an EG thing. Maybe that was the week off, but are there seeds of opportunity for this NRG team to make a finals run?
Maybe. I mean, you really covered the topics there. So,
sorry. Do you want to just end a recording now?
You're excited. You're excited. I love it. I love the energy. Okay, which one do we start off?
I think we unequivocally start off with Team Liquid 100 Thieves, just to get
okay.
No reason to dwell on that one.
No reason to dwell. I think we both kind of said, look, we think TL is the better one, but at the same time, honestly, I said take over 3.5. I'm not touching it. TL won, but really the biggest losers were the fans who had to watch what that apparently is League of Legends. And spoiler alert, TL should be eliminated next round, and like that's it. It was just ugly. It was bad gameplay from everyone. Honestly, 100 Thieves need to wrap it up and kind of restart that. I know they kind of restarted this year, but obviously losing Bjergsen, double lift, bringing him back out of retirement, there's just a lot there that I think they need to have a hard look at.
Yep. I think this 100 Thieves team, as an organization, like they had some great momentum the past couple of years. This year, just across the board, was kind of a down year for them. I'm sure they'll, regroup and be back next year. Yeah. This is a Team Liquid team that we had absolutely no confidence in, but we felt like was going to win that matchup. They're going to be up against an Evil Genius team that is just a better team.
Yeah, basically. I think that's it. And, why don't we just if we're looking at the odds here, TL's at underdog at the 2.05. EG is sitting at a 1.78. Now, that is actually, I think, just phenomenal.
Love it.
People are really overlooking EG. They got beaten 3-0 by Cloud9. One, I don't think that's the biggest surprise. We expected it. But really to dig into that, the Cloud9 win was not a clean 3-0. EG was winning game 1 until a really good flank by Eminez. And then they were also winning game 3. And funnily enough, they were winning both games by about 4K. They lose one fight. It cuts the gold lead in half. And then they lose a second fight. And the game ends. And I think that's a testament a little bit to two things here. One, Cloud9 knows how to really capitalize on the mistakes of the opposing teams, which is important as we're going into Worlds, because that's what other Korean and LPL teams. And then the second part of it is, I think you have an EG team that, I'm not saying they were playing scared, because they weren't, and it's so important not to play scared, and I know you want to talk about that, but it's also that I don't think knew how to play with such a good lead against Cloud9 and how to play it out, because you don't want them to have that lead and play scared the whole way. You want them to be aggressive and push the advantage, but there's a way of pushing that advantage that is safe. And both times they kind of threw away the advantage. They choked or whatever you want to say. And I actually, honestly, I really think that game one loss was such a mental breaker.
Yeah, it's deflating.
And because of those two, game one and game three, where EG was leading, I'm not ready to write them off.
I think this is a EG team that has now been beaten repeatedly by Cloud9, and not just like beaten, but like dismantled to a degree. And I think they have like a little bit of like a little brother, big brother syndrome going on. To your point, I think this is an EG team that was clearly up. They felt like they were about to win, and probably from like a mentality perspective, and maybe they need like a sports psychologist to come in just for the game against Cloud9. But it's like there's probably a level of, all right, we've got the lead, don't fuck this up, right?
Yeah.
And the minute you start playing that defensive, where you're now trying not to lose versus trying to win, and like there's a small distinction there, but it's all mental. It now leaves it open, I think, for Cloud9 to come in. They win a team fight, and now you're saying shit. Now things are steamrolling in the other direction, and they actually kind of like manifest themselves, and then it does happen.
And especially that game one, because it looked like they were on Cloud9's base. It was like, hey, we're breaking and we're gonna win. One flank by M&S, and then the game suddenly is over, and you're like, fuck, we just lost it. We threw it. To their credit, I don't think they were playing scared.
Totally. Yeah.
And you want to feel like, hey, when we have an advantage, how do we push this advantage? And the LPL and LCK are particularly great at that. You can see them how they choke you out. They really create these lines of ward, and they just pressure you so much that you can't get that game back. Good learning experience. I think whatever happens, EG should look at this and go, you know what, we were so this close to winning 2 games and being up 2-1. And it's very, I think, clear to pinpoint where the mistakes happen. I think going back to the bets, look.
The -1.5 at 2.49. This is an EG team that is significantly better than this Team Liquid team where they are right now. Your entire point on the Cloud9 point was, while it was a 3-0, and you have said this forever, I've started to warm up to it. Not all 3-0s are the same, right? Which is basically like there's a close 3-0, and then there's like a I got destroyed 3-0. The EG Cloud9 was a close 3-0. And so I saw nothing there other than just like a daddy spanking their kid and the kid feeling a little bad. This EG team's going to destroy this Liquid team. And honestly, if you wanted to go with the under 3.5,
you mean 2.5?
If you wanted to pick an EG,
they're going to beat them so bad they're going to win a best of 5 in 2 games.
Sorry, -2.5. The line's better for just -2.5. 4.8.
I would do that. Honestly, I would put 1 unit on -2.5. I would then hedge that with the -1.5, and then I would hedge that with the money line.
We love it. We love a good stacking.
Rolling money, and I don't think I need to overthink it.
This is a EG team that is just so much better than Team Liquid team. People are getting lost in the sauce of the names, and the lines are way more inflated than they should be. Fucking stack it all the way.
Absolutely. The other 2 matches. So we have TSM Dig. We can't touch on that. Dig looked a bit better. TSM looked okay. I didn't feel like it was a great match from either team, but at the same time, it's actually a pretty good send-off. I think the TSM players did really well. This was a team that was cobbled together after the Orcas decided to exit the LCS. And yes, technically, I think they're finishing in 7th place or something like that, but they
overperformed.
They had to overcome the fact that they subbed out Insanity, brought in Ruby, lost like 3 or 4 games. So that could have made a difference. You know, the whole team, I think the whole team just did well. It's just greater than the sum of the parts, and I think they should be pretty proud of that.
I believe my pick last week on this podcast, we said a couple things. We said 100% over 4.5. This game's going 5. We thought it was very close. And then I said you hedge that with, and then I also said Dig plus 1.5 because the odds were good. And I also said Dig money line. And so like, for me, I think I said Dig money line and then the over 4.5 as a hedge, right? Because I thought there was no way this wasn't going 5. It went 5, Dig 1, and so needless to say, again, Big Money Blues lives up to his name. 1 week a year. This was the week, and so it was a great turnaround. This was a Dig team, and this was my entire kind of premise last week was they were good, and they kind of like had a lull, but they had a little bit of, like, again, in a weird way, and I said this, but that extra week probably helped them. They got to watch TSM play a long match with EG, take that very close to the wire, which in theory should make TSM the better team because they pushed EG that far. But like when you're a team that gets to watch that much, you get to scout, and then having that week off, I think actually really helped Dig.
No, massively. I mean, you multiple steak dinners last week based off of you, so I hope people tailed you. I
Yeah,
think that you raised a really good point about like preparing, because I think that is what helped NRG the most with Golden Guardians. One,
sure.
we talked about this before. NRG has been on a run coming into playoffs, and catching teams at that time is where you can make a lot of money. It's great to see that happen. So that paid out. On top of that, I think this is a team that has figured out their identity. The first couple of weeks they hadn't. Now they have. They're playing well. Palafox particularly was playing really well, I felt.
So good.
FBI also great to see him back in form.
And that's a guy with
A guy
experience.
with experience. But more than anything, I felt like NRG really prepared for Golden Guardians. And you can see this in some of the picks and bans. Really read what Golden Guardians likes to play, and they counted it really well. And they understood what Golden Guardians likes to do, how they like to play, who they like to play. And I think they counted it. And a lot of that credit, I think, has to go to the coaching staff, who I assume are the ones who, put together the game plan and the strategy. And you saw it so well executed. I also think counterpoint, I think Golden Guns had an off day.
Correct. So this is something that we pointed out last week on this podcast, and it was part of the reason why I went with NRG. NRG was the only team that beat Golden Guardians twice during the regular season. And so this to me is one of these times where sometimes you just have a bad matchup. There's something about, and apologies for not being in the weeds on knowing every detail about this, but there's something about this NRG team that just like matches up well against this Golden Guardians team. They know how they play. There's some familiarity between the players and the champions that they pick and the kind of the strategy that they implement, where NRG feels confident playing this team.
I agree.
And so to me, this is another example. And to your point, this doesn't mean I think that Golden Guardians is going to go lose a Dignitas.
No,
absolutely not. Golden Guardians is going to, Golden Guardians will be Dignitas, and we'll look at the lines in a second. But this is just an NRG team that kind of it lined up perfect for him to make this run. Doesn't make me scared for Golden Guardians. I very much believe Golden Guardians could be the team that we see in the finals anyway, unless they have to play NRG again. It's just like a bad matchup for them. The best case that Golden Guardians has for making the finals is if NRG beats Cloud9 and NRG's in the finals, and then Golden Guardians has to play Cloud9 in the semis.
Lining up to have 4 really interesting teams as our top 4.
Totally.
I think, look, just to wrap up, I don't think there needs to be too much explanation. I expect Golden Guardians to win. I would give them a 3-1 win, so the -1.5 at 1.72. I really like that. And the other bets that I actually like looking at are the handicap kills. You can get -5.5 at a 1.81. I think that's just good, clean, easy. It's a 6-kill difference. It's an easy win. I expect Golden Guardians to be able to beat Dignitas with 6 kills.
Handily. Love it.
Yeah.
I don't have much else to add to that.
No.
I think you're spot on.
One hiccup does not change everything there. And then finally we have what I think is potentially one of the most interesting matches, Cloud9 versus NRG. So we talked about NRG. They really prepped so well for Golden Guardians, which gives me a lot of kind of hope for what is it going to be like when they play up against Cloud9, who there's a lot of tape out there on them. This is the same team for 2 years now, except apart from Eminence. The problem is that everyone's had access to that tape and no one's been able to beat them. It's like, we have all the tape on Brady and the Patriots. It's like, good luck and have fun with that.
Guess what? They also have tape on you.
Yeah, exactly. So
it works both ways.
I'm not entirely sure about that one, but the EG games, like I said, there were 2 games where EG very nearly won and were in a winning position.
Yeah.
There's a real chance that, like you say, Cloud9 could be taken out.
My concern here is that NRG is just happy to be here. I want to say NRG is going to win this game. And will I put one unit on 4.26? Of course. Yes. There's just no way I'm not doing it.
There's just so much value there.
When you're in the semifinals, there's no team matchup that really should be that skewed. They're clearly both good. I just, at the end of the day, it's like, man, Cloud9's really good.
Yeah.
And they're still really good. And the fact that they played poorly against an Evil Genius's team and still won at 3-0, it's like, that's a little bit telling. Now, I do think that there is history between EG and Cloud9 that kind of makes that different. But the main thing that I'm going to be betting on here, because you don't get as much value on it, is the over 3.5 matches. The plus 2.5 for NRG is actually a 1.47 versus the over 3.5 is a 1.55. So you get better money on the over 3.5. I think that'll probably be my only bet, other than just putting a taste on NRG.
Yeah.
And I think that'll just make me. That's enough money on that match for me to enjoy myself, but not be overly crazy.
Honestly, I'm gonna look at it game by game. I'm looking for drafts. It just makes the most sense
Okay.
there. I think the mine's 1.5 on Cloud9. It's just not good enough for me to take that. Mine's 2.5 at 2.72. I think is good enough, but it's a risky bet. I would maybe put 1 unit on it.
I want to bet on it. So to your point, I want to bet on NRG. Whether or not that's the right thing,
in your heart of hearts,
so be it. I just want to bet on NRG, so therefore I'm going to bet on the over 3.5.
Okay.
And I'm going to bet 1 unit on the NRG money line.
Yeah, look, I'm not against minus 2.5 on Cloud9, 2.72. I think there is maybe a chance that this feign slams to stop to screeching halt very fast and very hard. I think that's where the value is.
So here's my question for you.
Yeah.
Here's my question. We have 3 matches. We've just picked 3
winners,
favorites. Yeah. Obviously winners, but favorites. Who's the one team that has the chance to be upset?
I think it's Cloud9 with NRG.
Right? So why would you just, in the values there? Why would you not put a taste there?
Exactly. I agree.
I feel what's funny, and maybe this is, again, too much recency bias because we just saw what we saw against EG, which is funny, to kind of be down.
Yeah.
I use in air quotes on Cloud9 when they win 3-0. But it does feel like they're the most susceptible team that just might have a mental lapse, and then just let NRG will kind of take advantage of it. And NRG is playing really well. Don't take away from NRG. They're playing really well.
And the meta suits them. The coaching staff is doing well. Everything's lining up in the right way. So maybe.
Great point.
It's hard to see, but maybe. We have one more match. We don't have odds for it, but it's going to be the winners of the lower bracket. So it's either Golden Guardians, Dignitas, EG, TL. I think we're in agreement. It's Golden Guardians, EG. Who do you have?
I think you're going to get another Golden Guardians win.
Yeah.
I just think this is a team. I really like EG, but they haven't been the team that we've seen in previous splits. They seem like they are a shade off, and I mean, barely beating TSM again. Nothing against TSM, still a good matchup for TSM. But this seems like an EG team that's just they're not quite there. I think you're going to unfortunately see Golden Guardians be a semi-heavy favorite against them in this match. I mean, unless EG goes out and wins 3-0 and then GG and Dig go to 5, maybe you'll see the odds balance a bit more.
Yeah.
Look, I think Golden Guardians is the better team. We've talked about this. I think they had. I said it here. I think that their matchup against NRG is just a bad matchup for them. I don't think it means that they're a less good team. So I fully expect Golden Guardians to come in, probably beat EG 3-1.
Yeah.
I would definitely do a -1.5. I don't think it's going to go 5.
I agree. Look, I agree with you. I think there's kind of 2 things, and I'll back this up. It's one. There's been doubt around EG about halfway through the split, and people were like, "Are they figured out? Are they losing?" And they did go through a dip, and maybe it was exaggerated that they were figured out. They weren't that bad, but I've never been as convinced in their wins. It doesn't look like it's as good. Second criticism: they then brought Ameo back in for games 1 and 2, and then brought Shaden in back for game 3. That's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie. Game 3 elimination match against Cloud9, and it causes, I think, some doubt in both players. Is Ameo starting or is he not starting? Is Shaden starting or is he getting a fair shot, or is he being brought in when the situation is already so bad that it's not recoverable? I'm not convinced that they are as solid and a cohesive a team as Golden Guardians.
I think that's a phenomenal point. To me, that is indicative of a team chemistry that just isn't there. Not to say that they aren't a good team; they're a good team, but not a great team.
Yeah.
And so that's why, again, I don't think it'll be hard to beat Team Liquid in this situation. But going up against, honestly, whether they play Dig or Golden Guardians, this is an EG team I do not expect to be they're not a top 3 team. That's what I really am saying. I fully expect Golden Guardians to be the 3rd best team.
Yes.
And I expect them to win against Dignitas, and I expect them to beat TL or EG, but it should be EG.
Yep. And then we'll have the matches next week.
We'll have the matches next week.
All right, guys.
Can I get? I went 4-0 last week. Can I go 4-0 again this week?
Well, we'll see. I think so.
We'll see.
It's a
I think
it's a
so.
real possibility. I hope you
It's
tailed
big.
us. Hope you made lots of money.
It's big money. It's the big money time of year. So that's
Exactly.
when big money shows up.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Link to Discord down below. Love talking league, so please jump in. Actually, shout out to our boy Robert, who has a great model, which
God, he's killing it. He is
that
killing
he
it.
has nailed it. And even forget about us, just join the Discord for him. It's worth it. That's all I'll say there. All right. See you, everyone. Hope you enjoy.
Toodaloo.